Hi everybody, my name is Karen Barnett and today is the third day of National Park Week. And because I write novels set in our beautiful national parks, and because I had the joy of working as a park ranger many years ago, I thought it would be fun to hop on a short video each day and share some memory or anecdote of what it was like for me to work in our national parks. So today I want to share a story from my time at Mount Rainier. And I was working at Sunrise, which if you've watched the other two videos, I've explained a little bit about Sunrise at Mount Rainier. It's a visitor center on the northeast side of the mountain. Gorgeous location. And we had a very small naturalist staff at Sunrise. There were usually, I think there were 5 my first summer and 6 or 7 my second summer. But typically, when you had time off, everyone else was working. Or they weren't there. They were, in town buying groceries or doing something on their own. So it was very hard to find hiking buddies. And we, as park rangers, were always encouraging visitors to hike safely. And we would talk about the 10 essentials that you should take with you when you day hike so that you're safe. And to always take a buddy and to always tell someone where you're going to be. The problem is park rangers don't always follow their own advice. And this is one case where I kind of fell into that trap. It was an evening and I was done working. And so I decided it would be fun to take a quick hike before it got dark. And there was this beautiful hike that goes around Shadow Lake and then up, it just has some beautiful views of Mount Rainier. And I knew I was going to have to do this hike pretty fast so I could get back before it got dark. So I was hiking along at a good clip, looking in the distance at Mount Rainier. And there's this one spot on the trail where there is like a cliffside to your right going up and a cliffside to your left going down. And in front of you is the mountain in such glory and feeling so close that you feel like you could just reach out and touch the slopes, the snowy slopes, the glaciated slopes of Mount Rainier. It is just one of the most beautiful places on the mountain. And I'm hiking along just enchanted, walking as fast as I could and looking out at that view and walking along the trail with the cliff to my right and the cliff going down to my left. I'm continuing on just facing that mountain when all of a sudden I realized that the trail has turned. The problem was I hadn't. And I walked straight off the edge of the slope. And I ended up just cascading down, glissading, I guess you'd call it, on my heels down the slope super fast. It wasn't snowy, it was actually rocky. But the rocks up there on that slope were tiny little pumice stones. And if you've ever held a piece of pumice, you know that it's a very lightweight volcanic rock. It has a lot of air holes in it. And it almost feels like, if you're walking on it, it feels kind of like you're crunching along on popcorn or pieces of styrofoam. But when you're sliding downhill, all these little rocks were just kind of going every which way. And I ended up, in panic, flipping over onto my front, onto my chest, and just spread eagling myself over that slope, trying to stop myself from going downhill so fast. And I was able to just come to a stop. And I know it felt like I'd gone 20 or 30 feet, but in all reality, I probably went maybe 12. It probably wasn't as far as I imagined it being because I was just in terror that I was going down this hill so fast. And so I started trying to climb back up to the trail. And I'm kind of, going left, going right with my arms, trying to pull myself up. But every time I moved, all of these little pumice stones started shifting. And it's like I would go up a foot and slide back a foot, go up a foot, slide back a foot. And it was really difficult to get any forward and upward momentum. Eventually, I was able to grab onto a shrub and, get a little bit of help and, slowly made my way up that slope, whatever, 12 feet of it, and get my rear end back up on the trail. And I turned and I looked back out at the view I'd been staring at just shortly before that. Beautiful mountain across the valley, but between us was the White River Valley. which goes down about 2,000 feet, if I remember correctly, from that spot on that trail down to where the river was below. It's a very steep drop off. And I was just, I don't know how far away from sliding down to my death. It was a terrifying moment in my life. And one of those moments where you just realize that was really, really stupid. Because not only was I not paying attention to my feet, but I hadn't taken a buddy with me. I hadn't told anyone where I was going, hadn't told anyone I was going hiking, hadn't bothered to say when I would be back or where they could find me. It would have taken forever for anyone to find me had I even survived that drop. So here's a lesson to you. Park rangers don't always follow their own advice, but you should always be careful when you're hiking. Take someone with you, take a map, have your route planned out, let people know where you're going to be and when you will be back, because it is very easy to just take one bad step and end up where you don't want to be. So I'll be sharing stories all this week, and there are 2 other videos that are before this. You can go back and check those out if you like. And I hope you are having a good National Park Week, and please be sharing your story. Bye.